Hello and welcome back to my channel, to my old and new subscribers alike. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we are going to revisit an old classic, some good old-fashioned jollof rice, and the meat of choice is going to be some goat meat as well as some tripes. So I'm going to walk you through the whole recipe, meat included, so stay tuned if you want to find out how I go about making this. In my pot, we have a kilo of goat meat on the bone as well as some tripes, which we are just about to go ahead and season. To season the meat, we are going to need half an onion that has been chopped, a handful of flat leaf parsley, some ginger, a few cloves of garlic, a couple of tablespoons of aniseed, some black pepper, everyday seasoning, all-purpose seasoning, some chicken seasoning, some dried parsley, and more onion. Now we're just going to need to blend all of the fresh ingredients up, and they're going to serve to season the meat. So some of the onion will have to be left behind because they can be added up whole to the meat prior to going into the stove. Time to season the meat, so I'm just about to mix up all of the dry ingredients, which I'm going to pour all over the meat. Now adding up the blended mix, and I left a couple of tablespoons of the mix into the jar because I'm going to use that to season the pepper and tomato mix, which I'm going to walk you through in a minute. So I added a couple of bowls of water just to aid the whole cooking process, as well as the remaining onions. I'm now going to transfer the pot to the cooker on medium heat, partly uncovered, to cook for approximately 40 to 45 minutes. So we have 2 red bell peppers, a whole onion, and 2 tins of chopped tomatoes, which are going to form the basis of the tomato mix. So I'm just blending these up, and a couple of tablespoons of the green mix were also added to this just for extra flavor. So I've transferred this onto the stove to cook for about half an hour until all of the contents are nice and dry. So the meat has been cooking for about 45 minutes. I like my meat quite soft, so if you like it a bit harder, you may want to leave it in for under 45 minutes. I would say about 35 minutes. Now I'm just going to go ahead and fry up the goat meat as well as some of the tripe. So I didn't fry up all of the tripes because I wanted to add them to the tomato sauce at a later time, but I'll show you how I'll go about doing this. So we're just going to let this fry for a few minutes. I mean, again, the idea here is to give it a nice brown color. So this didn't stay in there for longer than 5-6 minutes. And once that's been done, you can remove the meat and then set aside. The blended tomato and pepper mix has been cooking for exactly 35 minutes. So it's nice and dry. As you can see, all of the liquid has been removed, and that's what you're looking for. So this is going to form the basis for your jollof rice. So I'm just pouring a few spoonfuls of the same oil that I used to fry the goat meat to cook the tomato further. So I think I must have added about 7 to 8 tablespoons. At the end, if there's too much oil, you may always remove the excess. But at the very beginning, when you're cooking up your tomato stew, you do need quite a bit of oil to get that nice jollof rice effect, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So once that's done, I'm going to add about 3 tablespoons of tomato puree, blend it all in, and let cook for about 5 minutes. Time to season your tomato stew now. So I just went ahead and added a couple of bay leaves as well as some chicken seasoning, and I also added some everyday seasoning, some parsley, and black pepper. Now these are the seasonings of choice that I like to use to spice up my stews, but it's entirely up to you what you'd like to use. I know everyone has their preference, and that's fine. So once that's done, you can also add a whole onion which has been sliced up and mix it up. Now, at this point, you also want to add your stock. So when you boiled the goat meat, you would have collected this nice, flavorful stock, which can now be added onto the tomato mix. Mix it all up and combine. And you also want to ensure that your seasoning is appropriate. So I decided at this point that the whole mix needed a little bit more seasoning, so I added some salt. So if that's the case and you need to do this, please go ahead and adjust your seasoning accordingly. At this point, I'm also adding the remaining tripe that has not been fried up. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I don't like my meat to be naked. Either it's fried or has to be coated in some stew or yumminess. So I'm just adding this in, but I'll be fishing them out prior to adding the rice. So these are just going to cook and combine for about 10 minutes, during which time I can wash my rice. And let's not forget the scotch bonnet. I'm not popping these, I'm just leaving them whole so that the stew doesn't end up too spicy. Now, I have several cups of basmati rice in my bowl, but I'm going to put the exact amount used in the description box, so don't worry about this. And I'm just going ahead and washing these several times until the water runs clear. So as I may have said before, you want to wash your rice really well so that all of the starch has been removed, especially when it comes to jollof rice. No one likes sticky jollof rice. No one likes it. It's not nice. So please make sure that you wash your rice accordingly. The stew is cooking up really nicely, and I'm just going to fish up the goat meat, so not the goat meat but the tripes at this point. And as you can see, they're nicely coated and it's going to make a lovely addition to the jollof rice. So I'm fishing them up and leaving them to the side, after which we can add the washed rice. Once the rice and the stew are combined, I like to let it cook for about 10 minutes uncovered before adding the foil. I think it just makes the whole cooking process a bit easier and it speeds it up. And you would have noticed that I also added some black pepper because, I'm always worried about not adding enough seasoning, especially when it comes to jollof rice. So I added a little bit of black pepper for extra seasoning. So the rice would have been cooking for 10 minutes and I'm stirring this in between. So I'm just stirring it a couple of times during the time that the rice is cooking, because you don't want to stir it too much, otherwise it will end up sticky. Once that's done, you can go ahead and add a little bit of water, so probably the equivalent of 2 to 3 tablespoons of hot water, again to aid the cooking process prior to adding your foil. So I'm just adding the foil, and when that's been done, I'm going to reduce the heat to the absolute minimum, and at this point your rice is going to steam. It's not going to need any further water. The whole cooking is going to happen by the steaming process. Et voila, your jollof rice is done. It's been exactly 40 minutes later and it has been steaming up a storm. I did not add any extra liquid. It was not required, and as you can see, the rice is nice and fluffy and so fragrant. This came out really well, if I do say so myself. And I'm just adding a little bit of the meat, just for extra effect. And if you haven't already, please like the video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you learned a few tricks. And also, if you have not already, please do subscribe and share the content. It would really help me and it would mean the world to me. And I'm just plating this up and I'm having this with a bit of salad. I think it's important to have your greens when you're eating jollof rice, because jollof is a bit moreish and you want to balance it out by making sure you have some greens. So normally we have this with some salad, or I would also make some vegetables on the side to go with it. and tasting this up, and so excited for dinner. I think I'll also be adding some plantain with this. I mean, you can't have jollof rice without, I mean, you can have it without plantain, but it's not quite complete, is it? I don't know. Tell me what you think. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you on my next video. Thank you so much. Bye.